naš puk je žrtvovan za čast otadžbine i Beograda. Vi nemate više da brinete za vaše živote koji više ne postoje. Zato napred u slavu za kralja i otadžbinu. Živeo kralj, živeo Beograd.
Hi, my name is Vladimir. I healed myself from lifelong anxiety issues, traumas, and severe depression.
Hi, my name is Avo Garbushin, and welcome to our Path to Healing. Joining me today is Vladimir Pavlovic, and here's his story of healing.
I survived horrific car accidents in my early 20s, and ever since then my life and my being, my whole being changed drastically. However, at the time I spent 9 months in cast. I had several surgeries. I had leg injuries. I had head injuries. I spent 4 days and 4 nights on intensive care with doctors debating whether to cut my leg off or not.
Oh wow!
My leg was completely shattered. I witnessed orthopedic surgeon when they brought me into the hospital for a treatment. I was looking at the surgeons drilling my leg with Black & Decker drill.
This is when you were how old?
I was 23 years old. Yeah.
And this is where?
That happened in Belgrade, in former Yugoslavia, in Serbia. And it was a beautiful summer evening. My friend came to pick me up, and we were going out to have fun, and we were going out to meet our friends. And on our way to meet our friends, we stopped at the intersection and on the traffic light. And the moment our lights turned green, my friend started driving motorcycle, and the car ran through the red light and T-boned us right in the middle of the intersection.
And your friend was okay, but you got hit hard?
He was
in your
okay,
leg?
yeah. He saw the car approaching and he lifted his leg. However, I was looking at the other side, and all I heard was just an enormous explosion, and I was thrown into the air, and I flew I don't know how far, and the next thing that I know is that I was trying to get up, and I got up, and then I saw my leg bending at the place where it's not supposed to bend.
Ooh.
So I lost my balance, and I fell down. I was taken to orthopedic hospital at the emergency, and then with the subsequent procedures I was hospitalized and spent in a hospital for about a month and a half, and it was discharged.
Yeah.
With cast. My whole leg was in cast, and I had 3 metal pins sticking out through my leg, through the cast. They were drilled through my bones.
So this was the starting point of the trauma that you had back then?
This was just one
of many?
Many, yeah.
So,
well, I think from my inception on, I had experienced enormous adversities, literally from my beginning.
Is this also during wartime?
No, this is for the moment of my inception in my mother's womb.
Oh.
My mother was married to a raging alcoholic, and the guy who had obviously a number of mental health issues, which at that time were not diagnosed properly and not addressed properly. So she was exposed to enormous amount of violence and alcoholism and beatings and all kinds of extremely painful experiences. So my first couple of years, my first 9 months of my beginnings in my mother's womb, and then first couple of years of my life were extremely adverse, to say at least. After a couple of years of being exposed to that kind of violence and rage, my mother decided to leave her husband, or my biological father, and she moved to live with her mother, and who turned to be my primary caregiver, since my mother worked most of the day. She was away and she was working. She was a single mom. So I grew up with my grandmother, who unfortunately had her own life history that was extremely excruciating and painful. She was born in 1913
during wartime?
During the First World War, where in Serbia, I don't know if you're aware of that, but in Serbia, Serbian people were absolutely massacred in the First World War. I think I'm not an expert on that, but as far as I know, about 25% of the population was killed in the First World War. So she was born in that environment.
So your grandmother's life also impacted you.
Exactly.
Your mother's life,
exactly.
And how you were raised in the womb, the accident, and then what other things would you say that kind of also added to it?
Yeah, throughout my growing up, unfortunately, I lost my grandmother, who was my primary caregiver, and
so would you say a lot of the trauma that you were facing had to do with your relationships with your grandmother, your mother, and also your biological father, who you don't have a relationship with, I guess?
Absolutely, yeah. She was, growing up with my grandmother, she had rheumatoid arthritis, and she died of pancreatic cancer when I was 12 years old. Growing up with somebody who suffered so much pain, and who was always there for everybody else, but at least for herself, I was watching her literally wilting and disappearing from this world, and
well, especially for a young kid to see that, it's hard to see.
I mean, I was I was 11 years old when she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and I was next to her all the time, and I was holding the bucket when she would literally purging. It was just it was extremely scary and difficult time for me to be. So all these left enormous impact on me, and without me being aware.
Yeah.
Of course, I developed a number of coping mechanisms, and
so the coping mechanisms which led to your addiction started very young then.
Yes, at the earliest stage.
Wow.
At the earliest stage.
Yeah.
And it is a part, a lot of it is a part of implicit memory that I wasn't not aware for years.
Your family life obviously had a lot to impact your, I guess, coping mechanisms of how you dealt with your relationships and their health issues as well, like your grandmother's pancreatic cancer, also how you were raised as well, plus being around people who were affected by the war. as well. I mean, that can make a big impact on somebody's life, personality as well, because you'll see other people, okay, well, they're also coping as well in a similar way,
Yeah.
right? So obviously, you just, I guess sometimes when you're in that situation, you follow suit as
Yes.
well. So after that, I guess you moved to Canada, I'm assuming, or?
I moved to Canada after I recovered from my car accident. I was 25 when I came to Canada.
But you left Serbia. You brought whatever you had inside you with you.
Of course.
To
Of
Canada.
course,
And then
course.
when you moved to Canada, obviously you settled down and you eventually got married and had kids.
Yes.
So
Yes.
then this eventually affected your family life.
Of course.
Right.
All these.
So how did it impact your family life?
Well, all these adversities. First of all, I was. Now I'm speaking about this from different perspective and different understanding and different knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a while to arrive to this point and be able to talk about these things.
Mm-hmm.
For years I was completely shut down and I would never talk to anyone about this. And coming here to Canada and with absolutely, I didn't speak the language. I was working the hardest job that I could get. It took me a while to get back into my field, my profession, and to get a job.
So was it civil engineering, you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult. It was extremely difficult. It was very different. I felt very, very lonely.
Mm-hmm. You didn't know too many people?
I didn't know too many people, and people that I knew, those were the people that I didn't have much in common.
Mm-hmm.
I was married for 14 years. I'm 53 now. I was married when I was 36 years old.
How many children do you have?
I have 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
I have a 16-year-old daughter and 10-year-old son. And I was married for 14 years. Most of my married life I spent working 6-7 days a week, working for years without any vacation.
So your relationship, though, I guess suffered because of that, and
A number of things.
And
I was not aware of the damage and the pain that I was creating around myself. My focus was mostly toward my work,
mm-hmm.
because that was the only means for us to survive here and to have a home and, like
Mm-hmm.
many other people, right?
Sure.
So I was extremely stressed out. I was extremely busy at work. I was putting a lot of hours. I was away from my family. I had a pattern which I was completely unaware of, that every couple of months I would explode.
Mm-hmm.
I would explode in rage. And I would explode in rage mostly toward my ex-wife. And it would be over the most benign or stupid things that would tick me off, and I would completely lose it.
Mm-hmm. And you weren't aware of your pattern at the time?
No, and that was happening every couple of months.
And was this
almost right? If you would write,
yeah, if you
it down,
logged it, you know the timing.
Exactly.
It's like you basically, all that work, you never took care of yourself.
Never.
And
Never.
You took care of your family, but even though you did take care of
I
your
didn't
family,
even take care of my family. I was taking care. I was
Financial
trying
areas.
to take care
Yeah.
of the bills and
Yeah.
all financial aspects of life, but I didn't take care of myself. I didn't take care of my family. I was just a provider.
I see.
Right? I was extremely unhappy. I was in very, very bad place. I didn't like it. I didn't know how to deal with that. I
So
didn't know
was
how
your
to cope with that.
circumstances then, would you say that, like, or was it, your circumstances obviously contributed, but that's very, I guess everybody goes through working hard to make money to support their family, but you had an underlying multiple issues as well.
Of course,
So
never addressed.
yeah, did your spouse ever think that you were depressed?
She was the one. She was the one who initiated that and who suggested.
Yeah. Were you ever, aside from maybe verbal outbursts, were you ever verbally abusive or physically abusive?
Physically, never.
Yeah.
But verbally, I would say the worst possible thing to her. Something that I would regret it.
Yeah.
I felt awful right after every argument. I would be sick. I would literally be sick. I would stop eating. I would feel nauseous for days. It was just an absolute awful way of existing. I mean, I was trying to seek for help, and I was knocking at the door, and I would go to see my doctor, and she would send me to different psychiatrists, and they would suggest. On top of all that, I was constantly suffering from excruciating physical pain. After the accident, my whole body was never the same.
Oh, okay.
I was shattered. My leg is slightly shorter. That affected my hips throughout the years, which shifted my hips a little bit, which caused the pain, right? But I was always told, like, tough it out. Like, it's life, right?
Yeah.
So I would always live with this pain, but I would never complain about it, right? Physical pain.
So
I was dealing with an anxiety, which I knew I have for most of my life. I felt always very anxious.
Mm.
I always had that feeling, and that's due to these extremely adverse effects from my inception on. Right, my mother was under constant anxiety, fearing every single day if she's gonna be beaten up or what's gonna happen.
So that's part of your DNA now.
Exactly,
it's all inside you.
It was yes, exactly. So I absorbed that, right? So, but on the other end, I developed coping mechanisms to mask that and not to show that. So you always have this almost kind of, I always felt torn apart between, like, I have this facade where I'm all, trying to be just like you, but inside of me, my heart is pounding for no apparent reason, right? There is always this doom and gloom that something out of nowhere, something horrible will happen out of nowhere, right?
So that made you always wound up.
Always. But again, I developed this coping mechanism where my facade would never, or I was trying not to show that, right? Because none of my friends, complain about anything, or throughout the school and my growing up, you have to go out and do what you have to do, right? On top of that, emotional pain, psychological pain. You have the physical pain from the car accident that I was also masking all my life, or most of my adult life, because I have to be always available, I have to be father, I have to be husband, I have to be employee, I have to be whatever I have to be, right? All these roles, right, to fulfill in order to survive.
Yeah.
Right. I learned how to function. So I always felt depressed. I always felt under threat of something, I don't know what, right? And bad things were happening to me, right? But I learned how to function without showing that. But inside, I was completely falling apart. I was absolutely torn. That led to me trying and seeking help through the medical system, the existing medical system, seeing different psychiatrists and different therapists.
So how many different therapists did you see?
Number of at least 7 or 8 different therapists in a period of maybe 10-15 years. And it was extremely discouraging. It was extremely, my experience with all that, with the system, it was very dehumanizing, with exception, a couple of exceptions of a couple of doctors and people who were there. Most of them all that experience is extremely dehumanizing. It's very, it's brutal. It's devoid of any humanity. It's pure project management. It's fantastic for the system. I mean, they do what they're supposed to do. They're there, I guess, in my experience, to make you function.
Yes.
Not to go on disability leaves, not to be on burden for society, right? So any number of times, I would heard from them that the most important thing is to stay on the grid, as they would say.
What does it mean by staying on the grid?
Staying on the grid, being employed, be functioning, taking care of kids,
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
And by all means.
Yeah, you were actually, I think, locked away in the hospital for a while. Can you tell me a bit about that experience?
Well, as they say, one thing leads to another. Enormous amount of uncertainty and lack of control of my own life contributed to further demise of my health and my well-being, right? That brought me to the point where my life didn't make any sense anymore. The trigger was just awful. All I remember from that was that, I came from work. I was, working as usual, and I had awful fight with my ex-wife, and I don't remember anything after that. I remember storming out of the house, and the next thing I know is that I woke up on the intensive care unit in the hospital. I didn't even know that I was on intensive care. I just woke up in the room.
Wow.
And,
you didn't even know
I didn't have a clue.
where you were,
No.
what happened.
No. I woke
It's gotta
up.
be frightening.
It was horrifying. I woke up in a dark room with all these instruments beeping and flashing the numbers in front of me. At the time, I just wanted to go home. I wanted to be with my kids, and I wanted to go to work the next day. That was all that was in my mind. And I became very agitated and very, very rude, and I started swearing at the doctors and the medical staff, and that kind of led to me being locked up on psychiatric unit for next 3 weeks. Prior to that, when I was going through all these difficulties, I came across the work of Dr. Arimathea. And for me, that was an instant. I was listening to his lectures and his talks on the YouTube and on the internet that I could find, and articles that he was writing, and to me, he became a beacon of hope.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that he was talking about,
Mm-hmm.
I recognized myself in many of his teachings, in many of his articles, in many of his.
So just to, I guess, tell the viewers about Dr. Arimathea. Dr. Arimathea is a doctor that works with ayahuasca and iboga to treat his patients with PTSD and depression, anxiety issues, addictions, depression, and a host of other traumas as well. And he's had major success with treating his patients, as well as, I guess, being a champion for the medical field using psychedelics through plant medicine together. So
he's absolutely seminal for me and my way to recovery and way to healing. And everything that he says and he writes, it makes absolute sense to me. And I was looking for alternative.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Deep down, I wanted to overcome all these issues that I had. I realized, number one, that I do have an issues and that I have to deal with them. It was the first time for me that I was working with these kind of modalities and plant medicine. So I was extremely concerned and nervous. I was afraid, quote unquote, of psychedelic, but I think what I was more afraid was I was afraid of my own mind.
Mm.
I was afraid of not coming back.
Okay.
From one of these journeys or experiences, and I just didn't know anything about that.
Mm-hmm. So this was back in 2014.
That was in 2014, yeah.
And then describe to me what was the ceremony like?
For the first time in my life, I had experience and feeling that the life that I knew up to that moment is not.
Can be the same.
It's not the only thing
Mm-hmm.
that's around us. And every time I would close my eyes, I would see these beautiful patterns and colors, and I just didn't know what was going on. Like I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know how to. I was just in complete awe and shock.
In a positive way?
In a very, very positive way. Yes, very, very positive way. I had experience when I would close my eyes that I would see energy flow in front of me. Well, nothing bad happened, and I was kind of relieved that that I'm back.
Yes,
I'm back to life, and
yeah.
Here I am again, and I go to work. It's everything is okay, and it's nothing. I'm not crazy. I'm not. Everything is. I touched the earth.
Yeah.
I looked around me, the plants, and
you're like.
The only difference is that you look.
I made it through the experience.
Yeah, you look at everything around you, but everything is. It's hard to describe. It's really ineffable experience. It's extremely difficult to put into the words.
So when you came out of it, and then did you have a perspective shift on
Not
your
right
own life,
away.
or did you have other ceremonies after that gave you that perspective change about your own life?
Not immediately. Not at least not immediately that I was aware of any. I felt extremely encouraged by that, and I felt that, yeah, this is something that I wouldn't mind trying again and working again with that.
Mm-hmm.
So it took me a number of ceremonies to kind of peel layer by layer.
How many ceremonies have you done
So far?
Yeah.
I did a number of them, probably close to 40, if not more than 40 ceremonies. Roughly 10 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you feel that with this work with after your plant medicine journeys, going deep inside yourself, peeling the layers of the mind, after all these years with, I think you said 40 ceremonies or more, plus the meditation with Sadhguru that you read his writings and his teachings, and also the other plant medicines that you just mentioned, do you feel you have been rehabilitated to a point where you are I think everybody still has always work to do, but do you feel like you are past your traumas?
Definitely. I feel great. I mean,
so describe to me after coming out of all those ceremonies, what did you do for integration to get back into life? Was there a process that you were told about, or was it just like you came home and you just dealt with whatever was going on in your mind after to process all that? Like, I don't need to hear, I guess, for every experience, but I guess if you can give me, I guess, some feedback on some of your experiences, the integration process, and how long it took.
Well, in general, for me, I've been attending ceremonies where after each ceremonies in the morning, we would sit in a circle and we would talk and comment about our experiences. Again, the most important thing, I think, is that there is a way out from the deepest depths, from the worst darkness. There is a way out, and it is for each of us to discover what is that. Not necessarily through plant medicine, but it could be
just regular meditation.
Number of other modalities that can bring you up. And
your ceremony, when you prepare for it, you have to go in with an intention. So what intention did you go in with when you started your ceremony? Because that's what drives your visions and how you proceed, and that it doesn't always, but I find that usually when you go in with one very specific and very important intention,
absolutely,
it drives your journey.
It helps, yes. It's a crucial part of the whole experience. One of my first intention was to overcome my own fears. And to be able to deal with my own fears. And once I overcame that, in subsequent ceremonies, almost every time I always inquire to go inside, deep inward, and to learn about myself as much as I can. And that's my intention, to know this life. What is this all about, and what triggers it, and how it works, and to learn. Every ceremony is a learning for me. It's enormous amount of learning. I think I'll need a few lifetimes to process all the experiences in the past for the ceremonies, right? If I have enough for the rest of my life, for sure, to go back and to process all the experiences. But again, intention every time. Intention is a crucial thing.
Did you have different intentions a few other ceremonies?
Well, I always try to keep it short. I find that more, you know, with medicine and with ayahuasca, it's you know, regardless sometimes of your intention, medicine has its own curriculum, and you know, as they say, you'll always get what you need, regardless of your intention. Of course, intention helps. What I found out that intention, if I formulate my intentions in terms of as short as possible, in terms of help me, teach me, and that's something that I learned from other people, that I can get more from difficult experiences. For me, it's always the best experiences are the ones where I'm there, you know, experiencing absolute presence and focus, and those are the experiences that bring me to the experience of absolute bliss, right, and presence and pure clarity and
that's the beautiful moment when you have clarity.
Yeah, it's balance. It's absolutely everything that is non-existent in my own life, and that I now crave. You know, it shows up. It's presented there. It's, you know, it's there for me to take and to use and to integrate into my own being. Yeah. So it's intentions are absolutely crucial.
So, what was the biggest insight or revelation that you had with one of your experiences that was like kind of like that pivotal moment where you kind of went, I'm wondering if you had a moment like that where, you know,
well, for me, the most...
Or was it a gradual build-up?
It is gradual build-up, but for me, and I experienced that a number of times, is experience of inclusiveness, experience of not knowing where I begin and where I end, experience of, you know, usually we relate to this world, this is a boundary, this body, this physical body is the boundary. But all of a sudden you're sitting in a ceremony and you don't know where you
begin or end?
Begin or end. And you are absolutely, you know, you go to the smallest particle that exists, to the edges of the universe, and you're all over the place, and it's just one of it's absolutely ineffable experience. It's something that that really makes me, I mean, I experienced my own death in the ceremonies. I literally I died, I dissolved, right? And
I had one of those too.
It is horrifying, but
I actually
on the other end, it's one of the most compassionate experiences that I ever had in my life.
I was just in awe because I was just watching my head roll down a pyramid and just land there, and I was just like in my vision looking at my chopped off head. And at that point, I knew that
at the same time you're a head and you're observer of the
yes,
head,
exactly.
Right? You see, like, whoa.
Yeah, and at that point, I knew that was kind of like where I'm being. It was the end of me and a new beginning.
Yeah.
But it's not that it was the first time. I actually had different experiences.
Yeah.
But in a different way, where it was kind of like a death and a renewal.
Yes.
But this was very much like, here you go, here's proof. You didn't think, you didn't know it before maybe, but I'm just making sure you got it right this time, that this is your death and rebirth. You know?
You're done.
So you're done.
I know.
But compared to, I guess, your past, which you had a lot of other addictions, now would you say that you are completely clear of those addictions?
Not completely. I'm working on that. There is definitely a lot less compulsion and impulsiveness and reaction in my life. Number of things I'm not even, I don't think about it. I'm working on that. I want to quit smoking. When I had issue with alcohol, I was more binging than and I would do that late at night, and I would just numb myself. I would take excessive amount of alcohol without any, completely senseless. It was just anesthetizing
the pain.
Yeah, you chug as much alcohol at a very short time as you can, and then you wake up in between your living room and kitchen, laying on the floor.
That's not something you do anymore.
No. Absolutely not. Yeah. Doesn't even cross my mind. I don't have any. I enjoy actually now occasionally, socially, glass of wine or glass of beer.
Cheers to your.
I don't have any. Not in a sense of craving that I have to have every day or but I certainly. There is no more burden related to that. It's not more a way of escaping anything, right? It's really
the pleasure of it.
Yes, I kind of, and it's not daily. It's sometimes it takes weeks or months.
Yeah. So after 40 plus ceremonies that you've done with ayahuasca, peeling the layers of the mind, going deeper. Gaining a deeper perspective about yourself, plus working with Sadhguru's teachings, meditations, and also all the books you just mentioned as well that you've read, and even plant medicine, sage, Palo Santo, tobacco, what else you mentioned, frankincense I believe as well, your daily walks. Do you feel that you're past these traumas? You are gone to a new level, transcended into a new person, kind of like a metamorphosis into a new person. Do you feel that way at this point? Do you feel that you've overcome those traumas? Or?
Definitely I do. Definitely I feel great. Again, I would like to say that by no means I'm endorsing or I'm encouraging or I'm suggesting for anyone to try any of these modalities, especially when it comes to plant medicine. I think that serious work, everybody has to do their own work and learning about prior to immersing themselves into work with these kind of medicine. This type of work requires extreme commitment. It requires your deepest gratitude and understanding of potential that the plant medicine offers, right? That's at least my understanding. So by no means I'm promoting or I'm encouraging the use of the plants. But in my case, it was absolutely life-saving modality that helped me completely transform. Not only change, but transform my whole being. And
do you feel you were transformed by just using that modality, or do you think
it was huge support for me. It was absolutely without it I wouldn't be here. I feel I have deepest reverence and gratitude toward medicine and toward all the people that were involved and helped me go through this process. But I did the work, but without support that I had, I don't think that could happen.
So, with your experience now, with getting past your traumas, now, how's your relationship with yourself and with the relationship with your family?
It's beautiful. It's absolutely... It's hard to describe. It is... I don't think of myself as a baked cookie,
Yeah.
quote unquote. That there is still quite a bit of work that I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, my well-being and my health is great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
So your mental health, your physical health.
I haven't been medicated in the last 4 years. I don't use any. I have medical cannabis prescription. I don't use it. I don't have a need for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, cannabis does help, but it actually helps with coping with your pain more so than actually getting rid of it.
It used to
right?
be, yeah.
So,
but I think I just don't have any need for that. I feel very content. I feel extremely grateful for every breath. I feel alive in my own life.
mm-hmm.
I fell in love with the life, not with my life, but with the life in general.
Yeah.
I'm just happy to be here every moment, and
Where we met a month ago is when I did my last
Yeah.
2 ceremonies.
Yeah.
And I haven't done as much as you have.
Yeah.
I've done a total of 13. And I in my experience, especially my last 2 ceremonies, it was just, it's just pure connection to everything and everyone around you. It's the purest love and bliss you feel once you come to a point of, I guess you've truly peeled the layers, you've gone deep inside. And it's not for everybody. Not everybody actually experiences that moment. But if they keep up with their healing routine, either through other modalities as well, they can also achieve this experience. But I know that coming out of the experience, it's like you just want to hug everybody.
I know.
So,
I know. It is
yeah.
that feeling and that experience of inclusiveness, and which I think it's essence of life, that life is all inclusive and it doesn't discriminate against anything. And once you stripped all the judgments and all the conditioning and everything else, and you stand in front of another human being, I think it's one of the most beautiful experiences that we can.
Yeah, I agree.
That we can offer to, or whatever, to each other. I mean, it's.
I'm just blessed. Every time I meet somebody that I see that they have actually overcome so many obstacles to get to where they are now, the healing that they've actually received, and getting rid of those pains, the traumas, and the issues, and not only that, but it actually makes you a new person, because it gets rid of a lot of your old self, which you do not want, but parts of your old self that were, your nature in terms of like your personality. Some of them they do remain, obviously.
Of course.
But I just love to see the changes. It's just and then when I met you and when you spoke about your experience briefly a month ago, I was just I was in awe, because like I've seen other people like yourself, but still some people that I meet along the way, not just with ayahuasca, with any other healing modality, it just they still have a lot of work to do.
Of course.
And we all, I think we all, everybody as part of our regular maintenance is to constantly work on ourselves as well. I'm just privileged to be in your presence,
you so
and thank you very much for being here today with me and the world, expressing all that's inside you, your feelings and your experiences, because I'm sure somebody will get touched by your story, because part of our path to healing, the video series and the book, is to just to share with the world what other people have experienced, and also obviously the science behind, the research behind the different healing modalities, that some of them which have been either covered up, or some of them are just, they're kind of lost over the centuries.
There is a way out.
Yeah, that there is a way. Yes,
Exactly.
exactly. The perfect sentence, that there is a way out. And I just want to bring hope to the world, that like one person at a time, and it just spreads, and eventually, we can heal the whole world together.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, Daisy, no. Sit down. Go, leave me alone. Sit down.
Sit, please. Just for another 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, he listened. Is it he or she? She.
Sit down, Daisy. Sit down. No.